Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Lincolnshire series, a district of 56 parishes in the north of Lincolnshire. Let's see which one we're visiting today. Welcome back to North Lincolnshire, and this morning I have Nikki with me. Hello, Nikki.
A tired Nikki.
Yes, a tired Nikki, because this episode is being filmed the day after we've just attended a wedding reception that went on quite late into the night, and we're feeling it a little bit, to be honest with you.
Not hanging.
No, we're not hanging,
No.
but we are. You know, we're weary. We're weary. Yeah.
So
it's a good thing then that this place is really small. In fact, it's so small that I'm halfway through it already, and we've only been going, what, 10 minutes?
If that.
So I'm stood on a bridge over something called the Bottisford Beck, and there's a sluice gate here. There's the beck, and that leads out into the River Trent. So let's explore where you'll find this. It's a place called East Butterwick. This North Lincolnshire episode is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to East Butterwick, a small village which lies on the banks of the River Trent, 2 miles south of Keadby Bridge in North Lincolnshire. It's the second of the Butterwick twins. It sits opposite its neighbour, West Butterwick, the two once connected by a ferry over the water. Unlike its western counterpart, East Butterwick has relatively few amenities readily available. That's not to say it hasn't in the past. This was formerly a thriving village with a variety of shops, a school, a chapel and a church, along with 2 pubs. East Butterwick is a predominantly agricultural community. Other than the river, it's surrounded on all sides by good quality farmland. There's also a 150-acre area of land known as Hale Common. East Butterwick also has an angling club with a well-stocked lake. The village shares close ties with its neighbours. It relies a lot on neighbouring Messingham, and it has a special connection with Susworth. There's some more coming on those connections in a little bit. East Butterwick is also noted for a sluice gate at the western end of Bottisford Beck, which drains into the River Trent. After this video, Susworth, which lies within the parish of Scunthorpe in West Lindsey, will be the only part of the eastern bank of the Trent we haven't seen between the Humber and Collingham near Newark. If you're not sick of the sight of the Trent, enjoy this little wander through one of North Lincolnshire's smallest parishes. It was almost as if they knew I was coming. This tractor that passed me here on Chapel Lane was the perfect example of what East Butterwick is all about: farming, and plenty of it. It's a community dominated by agriculture. It does have some landmarks of interest though. One of these is the village community hall, named after W.H. Scott, whose tireless efforts helped retain it. That's adjacent to a fairly sizable playing field, which has a play area at its western end. Here's a fun fact for you. Held annually, presumably on this field, there's a charity football match. It's played on Boxing Day between East Butterwick and a team from the neighbouring hamlet of Susworth. East Butterwick were the victors last year, and the monies raised went to the RNLI. So East Butterwick is basically just two streets. You've got Chapel Lane and the road that runs down the side of the Trent. We're almost at the end of Chapel Lane, so I suppose that just means turn left and head that way. We suspected that East Butterwick may well have some workers from Keadby power station living in it. After all, the parish notice board had SSE written all over it. For non-UK watchers, that's one of our energy suppliers here in the UK. Next to that, we found a standalone postbox. East Butterwick's nearest shops and amenities can be found in Messingham, which it adjoins to the east. Now we've turned to the left and this is the High Street. The River Trent is to our right in this shot and it's pretty obvious in truth, thanks to the raised flood wall that you can see. East Butterwick doesn't have a school. Children here attend school in Messingham or in Birmingham. However, historically, they would have attended this building. That's the 1880 dated old schoolhouse. And of course, the ferry across the Trent also provided transport for children to the school we saw in West Butterwick. We've now climbed a set of steps to get a look at East Butterwick's western twin. So you might remember the windmill at West Butterwick. There's a cracking view of it here, and there's also a boat coming down the river thanks to Nicky's eagle eye. We spotted this. You might not be able to see it because it's quite a long way away, but might catch it again as we venture further down the road. We didn't spot the boat again, so we continued down the road until we came to a bridge. You might be able to make out the defib machine on the wall of one of the houses over the road. This next thing is a sluice gate which you can find at the end of the Bottisford Beck, which runs from the town of Bottisford just to the south of Scunthorpe. Sluice gates are one of the most common hydraulic structures in controlling flow, rate and water level in open channels like Bottisford Beck. We've met a larger one of these before in West Stopwith. If you so desired, you could walk along Bottisford Beck via a public footpath alongside it. As tempting as that is, I opted to go up onto the riverbank next. Now, of course, in the West Butterwick episode, I made reference to the ferry that used to cross the Trent between the two Butterwick twins. Of course, that's no longer here anymore, but the community between the Butterwicks is still a thing. They are still connected by the people who live in them. And one thing that brought them together more than anything else in recent times was the Millennium celebrations. I was told by a guy who lives in West Butterwick that there was a boat which was moored in the Trent and it held a fireworks display to celebrate the Millennium back in 2000. Now, of course, I don't know whether that's true or not because it's come from somebody who's watched one of my videos. I haven't researched that myself. Maybe you guys here in East Butterwick can tell me if that was indeed the case. From the bank, we can see the former Bourne Primitive Methodist Chapel, originally built in 1830 and rebuilt on the same site in 1870. In 2014, it was sold for just £35,000 and converted into a 3-bedroom dwelling. These next two shots I took whilst I waited for Nicky to bring the car down from Chapel Lane. With a village this linear, it didn't make sense to waste time walking back when there were two of us. You're looking at West Butterwick. I wonder how many of the landmarks over the Trent you can recognise here. We're almost directly in line with where the ferry used to land at the pub. Here comes the missus. Hello. What was it like driving the car for the first time in ages?
It's not ages though, is it?
Well, it's been a while.
May.
May?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, well, you've done your very important job today, apart from walking around with me.
Oh, well, yeah, I suppose.
Continuing down the Trent bank, we come to one of East Butterwick's two original pubs. This is the Dog and Gun, which according to the Parish Council's website, supports a prize-winning brewery. This pub reminded me of the Percy Arms way back in Ayrmyn in the East Riding. Just like there, you can sit on the banks of the river, as the pub has turned this into an outdoor seating area. It's very clever. And Nicky gets a pat on the back for spotting these, because I didn't. Serving the same purpose as those seen in Hemmingborough, these are mounting steps. These look a little less worn though. Our last two landmarks are right next door to each other at the junction with Messingham Road. These are the War Memorial, which is for World War I only. It lists 9 names. The other landmark is a church. Right next to the War Memorial, we've discovered a chapel. Didn't know this was here. It's not marked on the map because I'm assuming this is a former chapel. It doesn't look very occupied or very well cared for. But Nikki spotted this. What have you seen, Mrs.?
St Andrew's Church, 1882.
All right, okay.
Doesn't appear to, it appears just to be a standalone chapel. I can't see any, there's no sort of, churchyard or anything.
No, I can't see any gravestones.
It is unkempt now. Whether or not, it says on the sign it's shared, whether or not it's used but just infrequently, who knows.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's used at all, quite frankly. It's very overgrown.
It might be overgrown, but it's not, you can still access it. If it was completely disused, it would either be with the Conservation Trust or it'd be locked up completely, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not.
So, okay. Anyway, that is the end of East Butterwick, because at this point it just runs south over the border and into West Lindsey, which means we're heading back to the car the other way. This one's not getting a picture bit because it's far too small. There's not really much I can show you other than what I've already shown you. East Butterwick is just basically the 2 streets, Chapel Lane and this one that runs down the side of the Trent. I don't know, I can't remember, but it'll be earlier in the video because I will have mentioned it by this point. So yeah, that's it. That's East Butterwick for you, and that's both of the Butterwick twins now complete, which means we can move on to the next one here in North Lincolnshire. So I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and this has been the parish of East Butterwick, and we're out.